This is the Hoka Clifton 9 and this is the Asics Novablast 5. I'm going to compare the two in terms of comfort, fit, cushioning and performance, so at the end of the video you'll have a better idea of what the key differences between the two shoes are. I'm James, I'm a foot and ankle specialist and I've been providing advice to patients for over 10 years on footwear. So let's get started. With the Hoka Clifton 9, you've got the CMEVA cushioning, which is a very responsive cushioning, so you sink into it a little bit, but then it springs you back out again. So when you initiate contact with the ground, you feel that energy return, it really pushes you back out of the shoe, and it's more of a daily training shoe. Not as responsive as the supercritical foam that you get in the Hoka Max 6, but not as soft as what you get in the Hoka Bondi 8. Then in contrast to that, you've got the Novablast 5, which is a big change from the Novablast 4. So with the Novablast 4, we would consider a performance trainer. So it had a really springy cushioning. Now they've updated the cushioning from the FF Blast Eco to the FF Blast Max in the Novablast 5. The key difference with this is it's a bit bouncier of a shoe, so as you tend to sink into it a little bit more, feels a bit more softer underfoot. It's not as responsive as what you got in the Novablast 4. So as a result of that, it changed the geometry and the feel of the shoe as well. So historically, with the Novablast 4, there was a little bit of a slap down in that transition from initial contact through to the propulsion phase of the gait cycle. You get a much smoother transition with the Novablast 5 now. So sink into it a little bit more, and we think that just helps reduce that slap phase during the mid stance of the gait cycle. We've got a little bit less cushioning on the Clifton 9. So there's 32 mils on the rear foot, 27 on the forefoot, giving a 5 mil drop. So we classify it as a low drop shoe. And then in the Novablast 5, we've got 41.5 mils in the rear foot, 33.5 in the forefoot, giving you an 8 mil drop. So just a slightly larger drop, and that does tilt your foot slightly forward in the shoe. Probably not enough to have a major contrast in terms of offloading the front or the back of your foot, but you start to notice it less in the Novablast 5 than you did in the Novablast 4, where you could really notice that 8 mil drop. Then in terms of their use cases, so from a day-to-day basis, we'd say that they're very similar now, as opposed to the Novablast 4 was very different in the Clifton 9. So they're both really good for running, for eating up the miles. So the Clifton 9 is a bit of a workhorse. It can do long runs, recovery runs, easy runs. It can even stretch into up-tempo work. The Novablast 4 was more of a performance up-tempo. You could use it as a race shoe, whereas the Novablast 5 is a little bit more like a day-to-day, every-use trainer. It's got incredible durability underneath, so we've seen hardly any wear on the undersole of the shoe, clocked up 40 to 50k now, and it still looks pristine underneath. So it's got excellent durability, built more for daily use, for longer runs, for your everyday runs. You can try some up-tempo work, and it has a little bit of bounce, but just keep in mind not as much as what you got in the 4. As we move up onto the top of the shoe, now the space in the toe boxes are different. So Hoka are renowned for having a tighter toe box that tapers earlier on the top of your foot. It's important to keep in mind if you've got a wider foot or you like your toes to splay, it does come in a wider option, whereas the Novablast 5, it's got plenty of space in the toe box with no issues with the length, and just a caveat is that the length is the same in the Clifton 9, so no issues there. But in the normal size in the Novablast 5, plenty of space for toes to splay. At the moment, because it's a newer shoe, it isn't available in the wide option, but typically the Novablast 4 came in a wide, so I'm sure that will follow later. It's got a much thinner tongue on top in the Asics that's gusseted, whereas you've got a padded gusseted tongue on the Clifton 9, and you've got a higher heel counter on the Novablast than you do on the Clifton 9. It's got moderate rigidity on both shoes, so if you're a little bit sensitive to the back of your heel, shouldn't be an issue with either of these shoes. So there's some contrast in terms of the fit in the toe box, and then they become more similar in terms of their use cases. Both of them are workhorses, not as responsive as some other shoes in each range. So in the Asics, the Novablast 4 was a bit more similar to the Superblast 2, whereas the Novablast 5 is a bit more contrasting to that and more of a daily use shoe. They can both use for everyday walking, for standing all day. Excellent all-rounder shoes. If you have any questions on them, please leave them in the comment section below. If you want to purchase the shoes, we got links in the description. It doesn't affect the price that you pay if you purchase through the links, but it helps fund the channel. If you found the video helpful, liking, sharing, subscribing really makes a big difference to the channel. Thank you very much for watching.